Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Killer fish. Killer fish from San Diego. I don't know what I am, but I taste really good. I'm a killer fish. Hello. I'll be your killer fish for the evening.
The killer fish is still considered to be at large.
I'm gonna have a stroke if you keep sneaking up on me. I'm a little tense, because I'm at Freddy's, but it's only my first night. Interesting fact about this place, they actually built it for the FNaF movie, but then, you know, Josh Hutcherson got stuck under one of the big metal doors, and they had to delay the movie for 8 years, I guess. I mean, it makes sense, you know, these doors are like fucking guillotines. Look at this killing action. Alive, dead, alive, dead, alive, super dead. Half the gameplay of the first game was being able to close the doors, so not having doors in the movie is kind of a big letdown. Okay, it's a small detail, and I'm being kind of nitpicky, so I'll shut up about it. Well, speaking of small details and being kind of nitpicky, I have personally noticed something about the Five Nights at Freddy series. That it went from this to this. And a bit of a difference there. See, the first Five Nights at Freddy's is eerie. The thing that's scary isn't these little sock puppets that come to scream at you. It's the buildup of tension, the atmosphere beforehand. That makes them scary. It makes you jump out of your ass when they yell at you. But as this bloated ass series has gone on, this buildup of tension through the environmental atmosphere has completely disappeared. And is it a bad thing? I say we take a look at the series as a whole and find out how Five Nights at Freddy's lost its atmosphere. Wait a second. Isn't that the title of the video? What the heck?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I'm gonna fucking kill myself.
Hello? Hello, hello? I've always wanted to do that. The first Five Nights at Freddy's is really fucking good, and that's because of how well it builds its atmosphere. But the point of this video is to answer the question of how Five Nights at Freddy's lost its atmosphere, and that question boils down to what we mean by atmosphere. Well, Google defines atmosphere— Shut the fuck up! The definition is kind of tricky to pin down, because the term atmosphere is kind of ooey-gooey, not super rigid. It's the mood, the vibe, and that's made up of literally every other part of the game. But when we focus on what kind of atmosphere FNaF is trying to create, a scary atmosphere, it becomes clear that we'll need to look at things that make the game either more or less scary. So yes, to some degree this video could have been titled, "Why isn't FNaF scary anymore?" but that just sounds way too fucking whiny. So how does FNaF build a scary atmosphere? Well, it's through three things: the location design, the character design, and the sound design. If I was more pretentious, I'd call these design pillars. And in FNaF 1, these are some sturdy pillars. This pizzeria feels grungy, but on top of that, it feels grounded. Everything in the office is analog and run down. The dingy lighting and staticky camera system make you feel like they could fail any minute, but they also make you buy into the reality and tangibility of the office. The animatronics give me the heebie-jeebies, but it's not just because of their character design. It's the way they look at you through the cameras that gives them their uncanny vibes. And it doesn't help hearing the distant laughing from Freddy, and neither do any of the other paranormal and otherworldly elements that are fucking with you. Eerie, swirling, ambient noises in the distance mixed with carnival music. The sound design in this game is genuinely, hand on the silver eyes, some of the best I've heard, though I'm no expert in making scary noises. Except for this one. Stupid. Together, these three aspects totally envelop you. They're the things that slowly amp up the tension so that when you finally get jump scared, you jump out of your ass. And yes, there is a secret fourth design pillar here. It's the story. A story that sits at the back of your mind as you play. That 5 kids apparently went missing. You begin to piece together that these aren't just animatronics, they're coffins of fur and metal with actual rotting corpses inside of them. For the sake of this video, I'm gonna avoid going into depth about the story because that shit gets convoluted down the line. But the way it's executed in the first game as vague dialogue and news clippings that you see through the cameras, it's done so well that I couldn't not mention it here. Well, with the best game in the series out of the way, let's begin our descent downhill with FNaF 2. Don't get me wrong, I really do like FNaF 2. just not for its atmosphere. The best way I can describe FNAF 2 is sensory overload the game. If your younger cousin has ADHD, he'll love this shit. While the first game uses the atmosphere to slowly build to a point of intensity, the jump scare, FNAF 2 is intensity cranked up to 11 the entire time, which doesn't lend itself for a slow build-up of tension or of atmosphere. But interestingly enough, it doesn't start out that way. The game opens from the perspective of Freddy on stage, and I think this opener is really fucking good. The sound design alone captures the unnerving atmosphere of the first game. You actually get to live through the horror of being stuffed into one of these suits, a concept that totally rattled my little 13-year-old brain. What was once only part of the story in the first game was now a playable experience. But then you play the first night, and for me at least, my immersion is lessened. 2 big fuck-off vents, giant cartoonish warning signs above a giant hallway door. Visually, it's kind of surrealist. The office lacks the same moodiness as the first game. There's no grunge here, everything is so wide open and well lit. You know, I think what's missing is the feeling of being backed into a corner. The openness makes me feel like, yeah, I could probably outrun that twink Bonnie. Or at least, that's what I would say if it weren't for the sound design. The sound design is the strongest aspect of this game. It really gets you stressed the fuck out. Instead of the eerie horror of FNAF 1, this is a different kind of horror. What little ambient noise there is quickly replaced by a constant, distant alarm. When you flip down your mask, you breathe like an asthmatic. You need to constantly slam your monitor in your face to keep your music box wound. Oh god, there's an animatronic in your office. The lights are flashing in your face. Wait, you didn't wind the music box. There's a flashing warning sign. Jesus Christ!
I'm Todd Howard, and this is Sensory Overload the Game.
Well, okay, if the sound design is able to bring back the scary atmosphere, then the rest of the design shouldn't matter because it isn't detracting from the overall atmosphere. Sure, but it's important to point out these small steps away from the eerie environmental and character design of the first game, because down the line, decisions made in a similar vein away from the eeriness would snowball into making it so that the later games just aren't scary. Anyway, I just mentioned character design, so that brings me to my massive gripe with this game, which is the toy animatronics. A few of them have a scary mode. Freddy and Chica's eyes will black out, and Chica will take off her beak to appear more menacing, apparently. But the original characters didn't need a scary mode. Bonnie in the original game was never trying to scare you with his lack of eyebrows and vacant expression. He just fucking looks like that. But don't get it twisted. I actually think some of the best designed characters in the series are in this game, with the withered animatronics being so immensely unsettling in a way that is reminiscent of the first game's tone, because they just look like that. Despite my problems with FNAF 2's atmosphere, I can safely say that it makes up for it in other aspects, something that I cannot say about FNAF 3. Welcome to Fazbear's Fright. Personally, I'm not a fan of all the green, like, motherfucker, you'd have to cover the walls in goo to try and make it scary. So, there's some problems that carry over here from FNAF 2. For one, it's way too spacious in here. Why the hell is everything around you perfectly lit? It just makes catching Springtrap awkward. But the main problem with the office is, you're barely in it, rather than the first games where you had to actively look around the office to check the lights and keep any animatronics out. Here you're a little iPad baby with your head buried in the camera. The gameplay is nearly entirely disconnected from the office, the space you're supposed to feel like you're immersed in. And when you do look around, there he is. Springtrap's design is genuinely the best in the entire series. He's the next step in the horrifying idea of being stuffed into one of these suits. And this game could have been good if he was actually scary or unnerving. But he just feels so small in comparison to the other animatronics. We love a short king. And I mean, it does make sense considering he's the size of a man in a suit, but even his demeanor at your door, it feels like he's slinking around, which doesn't make him feel intimidating. And why does he look at you like that? He just looks way too smug. Even if you had a tiny redesign to have his eyeballs popping out like in the end screen of FNAF 1, it would add to the idea that there's a corpse in this thing. This would also make him a seemingly blind animatronic, which would have really worked for a game based entirely on sound cues, I'm just saying. Even with the shitty jump scare, Scott could have made it better by having him pulling open his suit to reveal the corpse inside. Despite what I said about FNAF 2, I think Springtrap actively trying to scare you would work for this game, because he's a fucked up serial killer cyborg. Personally, this game is my least favorite in the series, and I think all these reasons contribute to that. There's just so much wasted potential here, and I think Scott knew the game kind of sucked, the jump scare especially, which is why the series didn't end here, and we got FNAF 4. I am home! The setting of the fourth game is mortifying. You're telling me they're in my fucking house? And hey, guess what? You're not a cripple anymore, so go ahead and scamper around. Right from the start, this game nails its atmosphere. This house is dark, but more importantly, it's quiet. The usual swirling ambience is replaced by crickets and the occasional dog barking. This is a familiar setting. I mean, you live in a house, so that means that you immediately feel immersed. And when you run to your bedroom door, staring into the darkness, you have no idea if you're face to face with a beast. All you can do is listen and trust your gut. The kind of fear that creates is so primal. Scott managed to take the darkness of the doorways in the first game and made it even more tense each and every time you check them. This game is definitely a return to form for the series, but in its own distinct way. And look, the animatronics. Do they move or behave like animatronics in any way, shape, or form? No. And so they don't instill the same kind of uncanny fear as the first game. Those clunky robots closing in on you, driven by the cold, unfeeling intent to stuff you into a suit, that's what made them terrifying. But here, it's like having an actual bear in your house. And don't get me wrong, that's still fucking scary. But I think Scott took it too far with the designs. They feel exaggerated, cartoonish even, with too many sharp teeth and claws. If you'd toned it back a little, these could have been deeply unsettling. I even created a redesigned Nightmare Fredbear to show you what I mean. To me, the fourth game was the last semblance of the series maintaining its core identity. From here onward, it just fucks up so badly.
Oh, I'm not gonna do FNaF well. Listen, okay, this video is about how these games build an eerie atmosphere. Here's all the places FNaF World built its atmosphere. Moving on! I told you, it's not happening! We're doing system—
Welcome to Robotown. Population plastic. In this game, you traverse this strange underground sci-fi facility. And this place is a total shithole. It really manages to bring back that run-down and dingy aesthetic the first game had, but it's missing that 80s Pizzeria vibe, other than the big red buttons that carried over, of course. Any direct comparisons to FNaF 1 I could make become challenging because you explore a new area of this giant facility each night. To start off, the office has some weird, uncanny decor, and oh god damn it, it's green again! But also, it feels like a total safe haven in here. Like, I don't think these little freakazoids are gonna come and get you. And there's no way the animatronics fit through these tiny vents, right? I mean, they're still big and chunky, cause, you know, it's the 80s, right? Right? Once you actually leave the office, the first minigame where you fend off little gremlins under a desk is neat, because it uses the fact that you can't see them to make them scarier. Later in the game there's a section where you're in the same room as Funtime Freddy, just barely catching glimpses of him, which makes him scarier. A little earlier in the game you crawl through Bellora's room and you barely see her silhouetted against the light of the doorway in the distance. You might be beginning to see a pattern here, but then there's the section where you crawl through Funtime Foxy's room, and it's far less tense. Because she looks fucking stupid. I mean, why is she tweaking like that? Many sections in this game obscure the animatronics somehow, which makes up for the fact that when you actually see them with their sleek plastic design, they look bad. They just look kind of unfinished. The way they're textured, their plastic is just big blocks of color, which really highlights that they're just 3D models. And when these animatronics enter their scary mode, opening their face up, you can see that rather than having an endoskeleton, these new animatronics are filled with robo-spaghetti. Now look, I'm not a stickler for hyper-realism, but every aspect of their design doesn't suspend my disbelief. Also, talking animatronics. It's a new idea introduced in this game, and frankly, it's a bad one. The voice acting is done well, and the writing is great, sure, but you uncannied the valley. The first game had the animatronics spouting garbled, distorted speech at you, as well as dry, raspy breathing. Things that directly conflicted with what these animatronics are supposed to be, inanimate machines. And that conflict is what made them scary. Making these animatronics into humanized characters with personalities removes some aspect of the unknown, which has been a key pillar of the horror in the series so far. But unfortunately, speaking animatronics are here to stay. I'm going to try and keep my thoughts brief with Pizzeria Simulator. The salvage sections of the game are done incredibly well, and the rest, it's not atmospheric, but it's not trying to be. But also, fuck me if these animatronics aren't ugly. What the fuck is this? It isn't even ugly in a scary way. Also, the jumpscares feel so disconnected from the environment, feeling like exactly what they are, a flat overlay over the gameplay. But the next game in this series, well, let's just say it wouldn't be nearly as flat.
Oh, fuck, I forgot about this game. Fuck, now my segue doesn't make any sense. I was trying to, like, segue into the next game that I thought I was going to talk about, which was going to be... Okay, well, I was gonna try and talk about Ultimate... Anyway, this game is just all the other games, but in VR, so we can move on. This video is long enough as...
My stomach has... There you are.
At long last, we've reached Security Breach. Genuinely the furthest the series has departed from its original tone and atmosphere. A culmination of all the previous decisions that moved the games away from a truly scary atmosphere. The location you're in is a well-lit, spacious mall with no sense of claustrophobia. Not even the camera effects are scary. The animatronics aren't clunky, silent killers that move around in an unnerving and paranormal way. They're now totally humanized robots that move freely, talk to you, and have feelings, apparently.
Yamendo, I am so sorry that we have emotions. I will avoid having thoughts and feelings in the future.
Okay, well, it sounds bad when you say it like that. Anyway, these guys continue the sleek, saturated plastic phase, which makes them feel like 3D models with no tangibility. And to top it all off, their jump scares suck. But why? It's not like they're any worse animated than the first ones. Well, I've been talking about it this whole video. There's no atmosphere anymore. Without a build-up to put you on edge, the jump scare, when it happens, is just weak. I've heard a lot of people say this, though I'm not sure who said it first. In Security Breach, what makes the jump scares scary is the fact that if you're seeing one, you just lost a shit ton of progress by dying. Looking at this game next to the first game side by side, it's actually insane to me how different in tone and atmosphere they've become. It sucks, but, you know, it's not like we don't still have the first game to go play. Anyway, that's the last game in the series. No, we're done! That's DLC! It doesn't even count!
You know, I don't think that this shift away from an eerie atmosphere was an accident on Scott's part. I think this is where Scott wanted to move the series. He took his golden goose and morphed it into a cyborg that he liked better. But I also think he could have just made a new series with sci-fi elements, or like an alternate universe, and it would have been better than continuing this bloated-ass series.
Okay, yeah, I think that covers just about everything I want to talk about. I'm gonna go because I don't actually work here. This is just a set. I snuck in for the video. So, thanks for watching and everything. What's up? Oh my... Hey! Oh, you didn't see that, did you? I'm gonna... Well, that was, like, surprisingly effective. I mean, I was telling you, these things are like death traps, like an actual killer fish from San Diego! Talk about sushi. Hey, you made it through the video. Good job. Did you agree with all that garbage that I said? If you did agree with me, leave a comment. And if you didn't agree with me, also leave a comment. Tell me why. Anyway, that wraps up this video. I'm not entirely sure what my next video will be about. I don't know if it'll be in the same style, but, you know, until then, I'll catch ya.
The killer fish is still considered to be at large. Please remain in your homes.